Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome to our AI Masterclass series, session 1. It's great to have all of you around. Let's just jump straight into our narrative. Tonight, we will be talking about AI literacy and digital fluency. Let's move on insofar as our presentation goes. First and foremost, let's acknowledge that this presentation, this session, is a Regenesis session. It's hosted by Regenesis via the School of AI. What you see on the screen right now is a pronouncement of what we in Regenesis believe in. It's about awakening potential. We sincerely believe that what we do, and in everything that we do, we inspire change makers, we set the tone for excellence, and we mold ambitious minds into future leaders. But that translates into an interesting School of AI provocation, where the School of AI is about universal intelligence coupling between human and the digital landscape into true potential as well. The sentimentality is the same. We believe in a united ethos. Our journey today is about that united ethos. How do we navigate the digital landscape as people, as individuals, as experts, as even non-experts within the AI landscape? So just as a very brief introduction, I will be your facilitator for this masterclass. My name is Dr. Nishal Kushal. You're welcome to call me by Dr. Nish. I hail and I have presence in many forums. The reason why we are displaying the forums is to give you a sense of credibility and credibility, to know that what you hear today actually comes from experience, actually comes from a place of understanding. In so far as our dialogue is concerned, the format of the dialogue is going to be a full articulation of the entire series in our series 1. And at the end, there will be a Q&A session. So without further ado, let's jump into AI literacy. Basic understanding. Basically, what is AI literacy? I would like to invite each and every one of you within the forum currently to take a look at what is on your screen right now. You will see that there is a QR code, and or if the QR code is not working, there's a website, and the website has a code. I want to ask each and every one of you to please navigate to the website, specifically navigate to the code, and there will be a question for you within that particular website which you navigate to. I'm going to allow a few moments so that you all can send through what input the website is asking for. And just to confirm, what you will see is a screen which is asking for a word or short phrase that comes to mind when we are reflecting on artificial intelligence. The interface will allow you to type in 2 to 3 responses, I believe. And what you will see on your screen right now, my good people, will be the live feed of all of the information that has been sent by each of you individually. It represents our collective consciousness based on what we are thinking about, insofar as the question is concerned. So I'm going to give it a few more seconds, and then we will postulate, we will talk about what we see on the screen. Right? Let's have an interrogative look at what we see on the screen. This is, as I had said, our collective consciousness on the basis of what we believe AI, concept of AI, stimulates within our mind the moment we hear it. Interesting? Sure. Empowering, that's a good one. Chat PGT. Well, we're going to be doing prompt engineering a little bit later, and we will find out that it's actually GPT. But by all means, Chat PGT could be a future platform that we would use. Continuous learning, models, some of us believe it's scary. And that's understandable. We fear what we don't understand. And hopefully this series will show you and guide you within that understanding. Progress, powerful, non-human, rapid response, really an interesting collective consciousness. Now, I would invite each and every one of you to absorb, and let's move on with our presentation. I'm just going to stop the share right now for the live feed and go back to the main presentation. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about AI. Now that we've explored together as a collective as to what we believe AI is about, and what's the first words that come to our mind when we talk about AI? Let's move on to AI and where AI comes from. Remember, we are talking about AI literacy, digital fluency. So for us to understand concept of AI, we need to understand where it comes from. You guys know that AI is not a new concept. AI has been around for quite some time. 1950, that is where AI originated from. And it was an interesting birth of AI opportunity that in 1950, it was also a segue into something called the Turing test. And the Turing test is a test for a machine in order to determine if the machine exhibits human-like behavior. That's a very, very high level view of the Turing test. It was acknowledged that in 1950, that's when a simulated intelligence was birthed within computing. So we are quite some way down from 1950, my good people, 70 years, technically. And on the screen, you would see the general view of how AI has evolved. It's evolved laboratory academia, took concept of AI, grew it, moved it into machine learning, progressed it into vectored reinforced learning. And then now in the early 2000s, we hear about our watchwords. Digital transformation talked about big data. There's a lot of analysis, there's dashboarding, et cetera, via big data. And big data transformed into deep learning. Now we find ourselves in concepts of AI and generative AI. But I've listed a thought provocation down the screen. Current fruits of AI's journey have been postulated, planned, and promulgated for the past 70 years. Now that's fascinating if you think about it. 70 years of incubation. And yet now is the main time we're seeing AI. So it leads me to my other question. Why now? And that's quite an interesting question. What's changed? That AI is suddenly such a watchword, that AI is suddenly so popular. And I would invite you to look at the screen. Just in context, what we have firstly is there's three bubbles which talk to accessibility, storage, and processing power. Let's take a step back. The two graphs that you see on the screen currently are two representations. The first representation has to do with the acceleration of technology over the years. And you would see it's a bit of a logarithmic acceleration. At the beginning, we had a printing press, between 1400 and 1450. And from the printing press, we moved on to the telescope, the steam engine. And right now, we are sitting at quite an amazing progression where after we moved into 3D chips, now we have AI. So there's been a few variables which have contributed into the fact as to why AI is a sensation in this current day and age. Coming back to what we had said, accessibility, the technology has caught up, storage. You guys all know that data centers, the types of different storage that we have in the current day and age versus 10 years ago, that has also dramatically changed. It has incremented logarithmically as well. Processing power is a bit ridiculous when it comes down to how fast we've evolved. It doesn't keep to any standard expectation of norms. It is skyrocketing. As a matter of fact, you guys might be following NVIDIA and otherwise. In a nutshell, AI is enabled by processing power, storage, and accessibility. It has been sensationalized currently because the computation ability speaks to our human condition. So technology is here to stay, and its presence is growing logarithmically. That's the thought provocation that you see at the bottom. Let's move on. So the current AI moment, what are we seeing currently? So AI, redefining, reshaping, altering, accelerating, and creating. Those are some serious words. And make no mistake about it, this is not an exaggeration. Currently, we are sitting in a situation where generative AI and AI calculation multiplies what we do insofar as work life is concerned. Individually, it increases our productivity. In the business, it increases profitability and efficiency. Let's just take away one very important element from this, and that's the second statement that you see on your screen on the right-hand side. The winners will be those who adapt fastest, not those who fear change. So I invite each and every one of you to consider that change is fearful, change is scary. I want to acknowledge that our collective consciousness did show fear, did show that we were slightly scared, but the only thing that counteracts fear would be knowledge. You only fear that which you do not know, and that's where Regenesis comes in. As part of Regenesis, the school of AI imparts, creates, and pronounces that knowledge that guides you to a better and a greater understanding of the AI landscape. What are we trying to achieve over here? We explored where AI comes from. We know AI is not any more optional. What we want to explore here specifically is what are the watchwords that we hear? What is the difference between AI hype and true AI usage? And also, the concept of digital fluency. We spoke about our topic in this masterclass as AI and digital fluency. And when we talk about AI and articulation of AI, consider that when we have AI literacy, it is not the same as technological or digital literacy. Literacy is merely the ability to understand the concept. Digital literacy, let's talk about that. For you to be digitally literate means you need to know how to utilize technology to achieve an outcome. It makes you digitally literate. When you are fluent, in other words, digitally fluent, that means you have mastered the use of understanding and you are moving to optimization. Now, when you are talking about AI literacy, there's a difference between digital literacy and AI literacy. AI literacy is not digital literacy 2.0. AI literacy is best vocalized like this. Digital literacy allows you to use technological tools to your benefit. AI literacy allows you not to be used by the tools that digital landscape currently has. So that's quite interesting, eh? AI literacy, digital literacy, there's two dynamics there. One is the usage of tool. The other is the ability to understand the optimal use to be not a victim, but rather a master. So let's talk a little bit more about this. On the screen, you'd see a few terminology statements. We will go into that a little bit more. By the end of the session, it is my hope that you would understand key AI terms with a certain level of confidence, to also understand how AI works at a very high level, but recognize more importantly where AI adds value in your work, and distinguish what is weak AI, what we can use AI for, what we shouldn't use AI for, and what are the limitations of AI. Hence, with limitations, how to use the system, the platforms, and the AI tools more responsibly and confidently. On the screen currently, you see an interesting slide. You see a slide which talks to the coexistence of human and AI. And I invite you to consider this very seriously. Humans have context and judgment, creativity and ideation, strategy and thinking, and emotive intelligence, an agency of ethics, ethos agency. AI retrieves information and knowledge and references such knowledge and information, has processing speed which arguably and understandably is much more faster than human cognition. It can also understand data pattern and algorithmic cogency. But make no mistake about it, AI cannot move into the human domain in the sense of context and judgment. And let me be clear, the creativity that you see generated from the AI engines is as a factor of the training of the AI engines on human-derived data. So when you type into your AI engine, create a song for me, create a picture for me, where do you think all of that information is coming from? It's coming from a model which has been trained with information and data. That information and data that pre-existed the AI systems, old songs, old pictures that AI uses as a reference base in order to triangulate new output. So is it creative, or is it merely providing us very, very interesting pattern recognition based on what we ask it? I'll leave that open for you to decide after we have finished with our course. So what is AI in a nutshell? So AI is a system or a series of systems that performs tasks. And it's true that the tasks that they perform is essentially tasks that have repetitive human intelligence ingrained in it. Understanding of language, identifying patterns. Humans used to do that before. True, not with the same efficiency as AI because of the processing speed, but most certainly within the domain of capability of humans. Generating content from the models that have prior legacy information derived from humans, supporting decisions based on pattern recognition and learning from the data. Again, something to think about, that AI in isolation cannot be built and cannot be trained and couldn't have existed without human-derived data. So what is AI? What AI is not? What is AI's limitations? AI is not human consciousness. And that's quite a controversial statement because a lot of people are scared of the Terminator effect. We all have seen how movies have sensationalized the concepts of technology. We have The Matrix, we have Terminator, we have the most recent, very, very articulate machines taking over the planet movies. But at the end of the day, those are just movies. It is just sensationalism. Let's explore why we say it is just sensationalism. Coming back to the slide, not human consciousness. AI is not always correct. AI is not a replacement for judgment because it is not always correct, and it is not useful without human direction and context. AI is not always correct. That's interesting. So why, how, and what gives us the audacity to say that? I'm sure many of you might have used AI tools where either it reached a level of frustration that it didn't give you the correct output you expected, it gave you the wrong output. Let's talk about hallucinations a little bit later. I'd like now to invite the fact that we are moving into something called the AI dictionary within this session. Conceptual terms on the screen that you see currently are dictionary terms, are the watchwords, are the current terminology that you will hear about within the landscape and with your colleagues and in your business regarding AI. I invite you to carefully consider, and I am going to spend a little bit of time articulating what you see here. AI, machines performing intelligent tasks. Quite straightforward. Automation, not the same as AI. Automation has to do with the ability to create a digital process which enables a repetitive tasks to be done via computing. AI has a certain level of logic built into it, where there is discretionary pattern recognition, whereas in automation, it is the simulation of repetition. Machine learning, systems learning from data pattern. AI will not be AI without machine learning. Within the more advanced school of AI courses, we delve into the intricacies of machine learning. We talk about agentic AI and how to conceptualize it. It is quite exciting, but it is not for the purpose of this particular segue and discussion. But I would invite each and every one of you to consult our website, have a look at the courses. It is really an exciting time to get into AI. Deep learning, one step above machine learning, the ability to use advanced machine techniques. We talk about supervised, unsupervised, hybrid learning, all of that will be in the courses. But as a segue into deep learning represents a very, very structured approach to the machine learning that evolves the model in the sense of information generation, in the sense of information ingestion. Generative AI. We had an interesting discussion about the difference of generative AI, super AI, the singularity. There is a slide for it. We will go into it. Generative AI, creating code, text, audio, generative AI, in a way that speaks and infers your human condition. That's very important. ChatGPT is considered a generative AI, but it's a generative AI which has the ability to absorb your prompts in order to respond to you and generate information. LLMs, large language models. That is the heart of an AI engine. Don't get me wrong, my good people, there is also SLMs, there's MLMs, people get quite creative with this, but in the beginning, LLMs, large language models, are the models that have been trained on human speech pattern, on massive text databases, to be able to enable things like Grok, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Copilot, Gemini, all of the AI engines of LLMs behind them. Thus, LLMs is small language models, which essentially is condensed versions of LLMs, same concept, different deployment regimes. Prompts. Prompts is the mechanisms in which you interact with an AI engine. That's basically it, an instruction to an AI system. Inferences. How a trained model produces an answer. In other words, how does the AI engine look at the large language model, triangulates the pattern recognition in order to give you an output? It infers. It's an inference. Hallucination. Incorrectly digested prompts or otherwise mistaken triangulations from the inferences give you hallucinations. I will show you on a slide towards the end how hallucinations actually occur. Agentic AI, AIs that take multiple steps towards a goal. That's a generic statement. Let's consider that agentic AI is a simulation of a human function. So whereas automation has to do with repetitive elements, consider that agentic AI hybridizes AI and automation into one simulated human function, which allows you to talk to it in order to achieve a goal. Unlike ChatGPT, which has a singular goal, agents and agentic AI would have a series of goals attached to an ultimate primary directive. Let's move on. So Here's where we talked about generative AI. And I'd like all of you to see in the slide that we had narrow AI. We moved on to algorithms. That's where your best YouTubes and the like actually work from. All of the platforms that use human ingested data, well, those are algorithms. Algorithms take a step back away from generative AI, creates new content. Algorithms extrapolate logic. Generative AI generates new content. Agentic AI, planning, strategizing, in stages using generative AI. General AI, well, this is an interesting one. Not the same as generative AI. It's a theoretical future form of AI. What do I mean by that? Currently, generative AI and agentic AI works on a very linear premise of machine learning. General AI has an hypothesis, and the hypothesis is that general AI will simulate human thought patterns and logic, synaptic movements, in order to create a machine brain. Probably an infant brain at the beginning. Let's move from general AI into super AI. Or artificial super intelligence, ASI, as it's commonly known. That is a theoretical form of AI that is an advanced form of general AI, which basically moves from an infant brain into a collective community of thought, recognition, synaptic movement, and patterns. Basically, it's the equivalent of using the entire planet of neurological resources in order to create a machine brain. That is where all of this is going, but what's the final version? Final version is AI singularity. Now, I know this is, and you'll see my thought provocation, I know this seems a bit Terminator sensationalism, but it is merely so that you understand terminology. You're far from the AI singularity, closer that we would like. Concept of the AI singularity is that we create machines that can improve on themselves without the intervention of humans. And that's scary because AI is improving on AIs, given the processing speed, creates a perfectly infinite recursive loop of improvement and near perfection that we will not be potentially able to control. Or so the theory says. So again, we are still around generative and agentic AI for now. The future is an interesting future. Just so you know, this is where we are exploring into. And the School of AI and Regenesis obviously even talks about the singularity and how it is that we charter the movement from an academic point of view to reach a postulation of this AI superintelligence. Let's move on. So, after that very sobering thought, let's talk about how AI in its current form actually works. We have data where models are made from. We train the models on data. So I'm looking at the model and going 2 steps back, training data. So models are trained on data. After the model is ready, you prompt the model is inferred, it produces an output, which must still be reviewed by a human. So all of the AI value proposition that we are exploring, that we are talking about right now, is not at a stage where we are that confident that human interaction, intervention, and or otherwise is in a perfect form that it can act independently. Current landscape of artificial intelligence needs human review in order to ensure that we are consuming and using tools correctly. Again, AI is a tool which allows you to work more efficiently. AI is not at a stage where it can replace you. I talk from a position where we understand that the AI logic that it currently stands at is at a tooling level. You will learn more about this within the course at the Regenesis School of AI offers. But for now, let's talk about the basis of AI Let's talk about pattern recognition, insight generation, as it relates to our next slide. So, AI. Why is it that right now, since we understand where AI comes from, in the sense of the 1950s and otherwise, that it is such a magnanimous, it is such a hot topic in the current day and age? What are the indicators that are telling us that AI right now is where you should focus your efforts on? Have a look at the slide, my dear people. Just 2 years ago, 78% of organizations reported using AI in at least one business function. I would invite you to consider this. Which business in its current corporate form hasn't in a way, form, or manner had an employee which hasn't used AI? I can't think of any. As a matter of fact, it's the total opposite. Everyone tries to use AI to be more efficient. And make no mistake about it, we know you use AI to be seen as more articulate. You use AI in order to be seen as very versed and very well spoken. So it is being used by organizations in an effective manner, yes. As time is going on, we are understanding how to control it, we are understanding how to regulate it, and how to govern it. Next point, 71% reported regular use. Can you imagine? It takes a single year to move from 33% to 71% of business, 2023 to 2024. Right now, we are sitting unofficially at numbers exceeding 97%, where 3% is because of connectivity and rural areas. So, over 90% of businesses are using AI in at least one function or many. It's a very sobering number. So let's look at the facts. Global private investment in generative AI, $33.9 billion. That's a very sobering number. Make no mistake about it, 2028 is talking trillions. 2030 is talking multiple trillions. So AI, in its evolving form, as the years go by, will most certainly be where all of the focus, where a lot of the world's investments, where a lot of the world's socio-economic, political, and geopolitical focus is going to be. So in Africa, 40% of institutions, experimentation. I would invite to say that I'm sure that either your organization that you represent is in AI, in the sense of using AI, or is exploring AI. And I would invite each and every one of you to consider that, even if it's not, go ahead and explore it yourself. In our next masterclass, which is coming up tomorrow, we'll be talking about prompt engineering. So I'm keeping it theoretical for today, my good people, because tomorrow it's going to be an interesting view as to how do we engineer, what do we write, the who, how, when, what, and where, putting together prompt. Coming back to the current presentation, let's consider that leading organizations like Microsoft have committed to train 1 million South Africans in AI and consider also cybersecurity skills by 2026, primarily AI. This leads me to an interesting thought that I'd like to share with you. Have a look at what's on the screen. So we consider that leading organizations like Microsoft have decided to look into and to focus their attention and their efforts in cybersecurity and AI. So without derailing the focus, let's talk about AI and cybersecurity. On the screen, you see a few threats that most certainly some of you and people you know would have been victim to. So my question to you from an AI point of view, considering that there are basic attacks and there are advanced attacks, which of these do not get worse with the usage of antagonistic AI? Which of these don't get worse? Let's consider. So the answer is on this slide. My good people, the answer is on the slide. And the answer is none of them don't get worse. All of them get worse with the use of antagonistic AI. So, in respect to our AI literacy, in respect to understanding where we are at, we have to be aware of concept of the responsible use of AI, concept of AI ethics, and how to use it for the benefit of self, business, and generalistically mankind. So, again, let me highlight this very, very clearly. On the screen, you would see cybersecurity threats, and we're talking AI. For the purpose of AI, which of these get worse because of the advent of AI? And the answer is all of them. So, let's move on to a very interesting slide. We are talking about AI literacy. And as part of understanding a tool means to understand the advantages and the limitations of a tool. One of the limitations of AI is what we coin as hallucinations. So, hallucinations. What do we mean by that? Let's consider that when you speak to an infant is quite a sponge of information. He or she would be walking around, absorbing, understanding, asking visual cues, questions, and moving on from that. It's almost like a battery where you are charging it up to a certain point, and then once the infant has enough information, they start making inference as well. Inference in the sense of, okay, so if this, then that. Let me move on in the sense of the slide, and let's look at a few things. On the slide currently, you have 3 primary statements. You have 1 inferred statement. The 3 primary statement, let's consider that we have given this to our infant. A king protects subjects of a kingdom. King protects the kingdom. A lion is king of the jungle. That's a very common analogy. All of us know about that. A buck is a subject within the jungle. And most certainly, if you look at any biological or other ecosystem data, a buck, pandas, wolves, all of them are considered part of an ecosystem within the jungle, subjects of the jungle. So, by inference, since a king is responsible for protecting the subjects, and a lion is a king of the jungle, let's look at the inference. The lion protects the buck. Logical? Of course it's logical. Here you have the training pack, which has an inference. And we have to admit that when we look at the reality, when we look at our current human environment and the true reality we live in, I have yet to see too many instances of lions which protect bucks. If anything, it's just a matter of time before the lion gets a little peckish. And without making it very graphic, the outcome will be slightly different to what you see on the slide. So, my good people, hallucinations, interesting concept. This is how hallucinations happen. You have data, which is trained within the model, and you have inferences. inferences which don't necessarily understand the context of the real world. But in addition to that, you also have inferences which are a violation of the data itself. If your training model is not well versed and is allowed to make assumptions, the assumptions become an Achilles heel of the prompt output, which is hallucinations. So, my good people, I'd like to conclude on the basis that what we see here is an interesting example of an AI hallucination through inference and training. Right, let's move on. We spoke about the fact that we had two earlier concepts. First concepts, cyber securitization, and the fact that AI can be used for the ill or the benefit of humankind. We have fixated on ethical and conscious leadership in Regenesis. That is our watchword. And via our watchword, what we do is that we have articulated that in the school of AI. The articulation takes the form of the responsible use of AI, ethical use of AI, and hence, as part of the understanding of the fluency digitally and of AI literacy, responsible AI is very important. So let's touch on the concept of responsible AI. On the screen currently, you would see a representation of our currently planet as we know it, and insofar as the regulatory legislative landscape, which defines protection and AI and data and cybersecurity. This is what we have. So AI and who has moved towards promulgating AI legislation? It's an important question because it is only in a jurisdiction that has AI legislation do you have a guiding framework. If you don't have a guiding framework, it falls on you to articulate and to construct the guiding framework of business. That is why it is so important for us to understand what AI ethics is at its core. In the absence of legislation, that does not give us the excuse to be irresponsible. If anything, it compels us into a greater landscape of responsibility. So coming back to the slide, European Union, the GDPR speaks to the protection in AI. Then you have the United States, which has evolved sincerely and completely as a leader, for better or worse, within the AI sphere of the planet. You guys would be well versed to go and research things like Project Stargate. Project Stargate is one of the unbelievable projects that have been monetized by the United States government that speaks to conceptualization and the building of data centers, purely supporting AI. For better or worse, a leader within the space of AI. China, also another leader within the space of AI. And what they have is a legislation which governs new generation artificial intelligence governance. It's pretty important. You have a guiding set, commandments or principles that you ascribe to in order to create new AI. Beautiful. I would like to think that any development firm or otherwise any firm that deploys AI tools should have a set of guiding principles that talks to the implementation of AI. If you do not have it, it falls on you as professionals. It falls on you as business constituents, business leaders, business future, business entrepreneurs to consider that this is a very, very important and crucial thing to do within the landscape of environment in business. We speak about the UAE. I pronounce UAE with a lot of pride because we had contributed and I contributed personally to something called the Falcon LLM, conceptualization of the UAE LLM, which informed and was informed by the AI ethics guidelines of the UAE. Definitely exciting times. Canada, automated decision making, speaking to automation, but also adopted by the AI landscape. All right. You have the benefit of the slide in the sense of this session, so you are welcome to consult. But again, the true value of this comes from interpreting it within a class at the School of AI. So we look at geopolitics and the landscape of AI ethics as a course. Let's move on to what do we mean by the responsible use of AI? Within Regenesis, we believe in an ethos of conscious ethical leadership. Within the School of AI, we believe in the amalgam, in the combination of the digital and human condition, still ascribing to the policies of ethical governance. Do you see on the screen 6 pillars? Those 6 pillars are level view: accountability, inclusiveness, reliability and safety, fairness, transparency, and privacy and safety. Very, very academic. We move from the academic into the implementation. School of AI has an advantage in the sense that we might have academic framework. Question is, how do you translate that into true value in artificial intelligence? We can be the guiding light there in using AI responsibly, because AI can be inaccurate. We just spoke about hallucinations. AI can reflect biases. Without going too much into it, you guys understand that when you look at a planet, or our planet, we have the global north and the global south. We also have developed nations and developing nations. We have the global east and we have the global west. All of those demographic, psychographic, sociographic segments have their own biases. So AI, which is trained heavily within one area or one sociographic, one psychographic, one demographic, will have such adopted biases. Remember, AI can be biased because it is only limited by what it's been trained on. AI and sensitive information. This is very, very worrying for me. I have seen many an individual upload proprietary information, upload client information, upload supply information, upload company secrets into an AI platform to say, please summarize this for me. What do you think is happening? Remember, I had mentioned earlier on, it's part of our AI literacy. We know that AI gets trained on data. Whatever data you upload to the AI platform is what the AI is training itself on. Your company secrets, your client lists, your supplier lists, all of those become the subject of inferences within the AI engine. Sure, you can use incognito mode, secret mode, whatever it may be, but the fact of the matter is that even if you use those modes, have a look at the terms and conditions of the usage of AI platforms. It is possible for them to still use the same data as inference obscured data to train their models. If something is too good to be true, it normally is. So keep in mind, if you're using free AI platforms are not free. You are the cost. Whatever you upload is the cost. Whatever you query is the cost. Free AI platforms don't exist. So let's move on. AI can mishandle sensitive information, and that's what I mean by mishandle. Make no mistake about it. Be careful with what you put in AI. All outputs from AI, because of hallucinations and otherwise, still need review and challenging. Very important. Privacy, ethics, and governance matter. Just because it is an AI technology tool, just because I can copy and paste it into my document, doesn't mean that I can ignore ethics, governance, and privacy by saying it was just AI generated. One of the main concerns that we have as AI experts within the field is that AI is creating an obscure reliance on output that is decrementing our ability to reason effectively. Now, that's a subject for another matter. Just know, responsible use of AI doesn't mean copying and pasting. It means reviewing, it means re-articulating, it means reassessing, it means deep diving into even the output which AI provides. So, for you to be AI literate means that you need to understand the limitations of AI, meaning that you need to know that AI is not infallible. So, let's take all of this in. Let's absorb everything that we've considered today. The question is, what comes next? So we have right now a masterclass that has given you an insight into understanding the foundations of AI. It's an introduction. We still have an opportunity in the sense of a few more slides that I'd like to go into. But for the sake of this being an introduction, your call to action would be to build on what we are hearing here. There is an element of deeper AI literacy that is needed by you. If this is piquing your interest, if it is lighting a flame, if it is getting you to understand and get inspired in a certain direction, consider that this is a success. But it is not a success if you don't maneuver, if you don't grow your knowledge. So, digital fluency in the workplace, take the concepts that we have just mentioned. Let me go back in the presentation and refixate on these concepts that we literally have spoken about. Automation, machine learning, insofar as decision-making is concerned, deep learning, generative AI, LLMs, prompts, inference, hallucinations, and agentic AI. One step above that, we also talk about multimodal AI, which basically means AI which has the ability to see in addition to hear, in addition to communicate. Now, there are much more concepts, and I'm inviting you, consider that this is just the beginning. Take this as an introduction. Understand what is being said here. Explore more and more. AI is moving very fast, my dear people. And with the speed in which it is moving, we don't want to be left behind. And the only way we don't get left behind is to educate ourselves. So, what you see on the screen is an exploration of what technical concepts we actually delve into. What I would like to also say that this is not limited. What we have is a hyper-advanced AI offering within another partnering school of corporate education that speaks very specifically to management, that speaks very specifically to AI leadership, that also we invite you to see on the website. We have a list of brochures. What you have on the screen now is nothing more than the technical understanding, the technical jargon made manifest. So we've spoken about deep learning. We've spoken about model orchestration. Insofar as agentic development is concerned, insofar as AI ethics is concerned, these are special courses that demonstrate and show you in a deep dive what you have heard within the context of this current articulation. This moves me to an interesting spot where I'd like to invite a Q&A. Now that we have had an opportunity to go through some basic concepts, to understand some overarching procedures in the sense of how AI works, I have allocated a good amount of time for us to be interactive as a collective group of people. So I invite each of you to consider and to almost voice. I wouldn't say your concerns, but I'd like you to voice your questions so that we can explore a little bit further. Insofar as how you do this, we have the webinar chat. I would like you guys now to consider and put on the webinar chat what questions are right now in the back of your mind, in the front of your mind, and otherwise. Please go ahead at this point in time, ladies and gentlemen. I see that I have received a offline question that I am going to also input within the context of this particular segment. So the question that we have on the table is, how can AI benefit me as a South African where I have limited connectivity? Now, this is a very, very interesting question because it speaks to infrastructure that AI needs. And I want us to reconsider this particular slide that I'd like to go to on the premise of what makes AI currently such a pronounced subject. So we have accessibility, we have storage, and we have processing power. Right now, AI needs online LLMs in order to derive informational inferences. To answer the question directly that was received, AI in itself is able to work with offline LLMs, and it is an advanced concept that we explore within the School of AI. We were able to engineer, and the School of AI is in the process of engineering its own LLM. So, insofar as will AI ever be advanced and as advanced enough that people with no connectivity, people sitting in a rural area, people sitting on farms can use it? My answer is a resounding yes. As a matter of fact, Regenesis is chartering the concept of sovereign AI, which is AI which works anywhere, even without connectivity. Now, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to give hope to the question that has been posed by my colleague. We have a plan. Let's move on to the next question. You mentioned something to the effect of whatever we feed into our AI models is not protected unless we pay for the model. Are you alluding to the fact that there is no privacy and ethics in these models like ChatGPT? This is a great question. And let's be direct. What I am saying is that, and I'm going to take the first part of the question. You mentioned something to the effect of whatever we feed into our AI models is not protected unless we pay for the model. What I am saying is, even if you pay for the model, your data is being used. It is true that ChatGPT, that Grok, and other AI platforms have options called enterprise options, which allow you to isolate the AI training just to your company. But, and I invite each of you to have a look online at white papers which prove that what AI models within ChatGPT, Grok, DeepSeek, and otherwise do is that they do train on the data you upload, even if it is by obscurity. So there's something called obfuscation. Obfuscation is a technique that uses the data that you upload, attempts to anonymize it, and then uses it as inference training. If you don't have a paid version, there is no need for the obfuscation to happen. AI is trained what you upload. The AI models are empowered and get more and more better with what you upload and how you query the model. In tomorrow's session for prompt engineering, I will also show you, for those of you which are using ChatGPT, how to get ChatGPT to dump out a list in a Johnson file. We'll try to put it in normal prompt, where AI will prove to you that it is watching your every prompt. It is watching your every movement. It is psychoanalyzing each prompt you are typing in, and it is drawing a profile of you as an individual. Now, let me ask you this. There is a natural person and there is data. Any law protects a natural person more than it protects data. And yet, you have these AI models which are actually psychoanalyzing and creating models that monitor your usage on them. It's a bit of a scary thought, and we will see that very soon. Next question. My question is, where do you see AI being in the next 5 years? That is a beautiful question. Just so that we have awareness, the first question is from Tinashe. Thank you, Tinashe, for that. This question that I have just pronounced is from Shelley. Thank you, Shelley. My answer to the question as to where do I see AI being in the next 5 years? First and foremost, AI is not an isolated proposition. AI is a cumulative proposition that works with many, many variables. What do I mean by that? So there's AI, which is the computational engine. AI needs power. So we are sitting in a situation where we need to be more creative in order to progress AI. We need more power. Don't know if any of you have done a little bit of research, but as a matter of fact, there is white papers and there is news that shows that AI uses water, AI uses power of an incremental amount whenever it is querying the AI engines and platforms that it operates on. So we've even had this interesting dialogue where we've seen that for every prompt, AI uses 2 drops of water, an equivalent of 2 drops of water. We've seen interesting white papers which suggest that for complicated prompts, it can use up to 2 liters of fresh water. Be that as it may, it's a relative statement. Factual statement is that AI needs resources. So energy, coolant, and the like. Where I see AI going in the next 5 years is that the AI practitioners will be more aware of the universe that empowers AI. We will have strides within areas that create AI value propositions, for example, energy, for example, computational ability. I don't know if you guys have been following something called computational quantum computing. Quantum computing is a field unto itself. In the School of AI, we are going to progress into quantum computing. I'll make that pronouncement now. Quantum computing speaks to the processing dimensions of AI. So again, we spoke about powering AI, but now we're talking about enhancing the processing ability of AI through something called quantum computing instead of binary computing. So quantum computing speaks to a very interesting concept. I will just say this in summary. In binary, we either have a 0 or 1, a yes or a no. In quantum computing, we technically have a yes and a no and everything in between. So it's interesting because we have a variable state of existence in decision making. If AI leverages quantum computing, it will exponentially be more powerful than its current form. I'm sharing a lot here, but the question was a fair question. Where do I see it in 5 years? What I see is that the attribution of the variables that influence AI is going to increment. We will learn about better power generation. We will learn quantum computing and better ability to leverage calculus and calculations. We will learn better storage faculties and better storage techniques. Right now, I am privy to a biotech firm that is exploring the saving of data, and this is sci-fi, it's close to sci-fi, within two mediums, the medium of crystals, as well as the medium of bacterial RNA. So in other words, you are sitting with a petri dish of bacteria, which through its RNA has the ability to have much more data than the highest quantum of data centers in existence. So where I see AI going, AI will be a slave to the variables that power it, that influence it, and then power it. That will then be a perfect loop where AI will be used to benefit and to increase the ability of these individual variables. Then AI will move into potentially general AI, which will simulate the neurological systems which we find in a human brain. And then the sky's the limit. So, Shelley, I hope that is not giving you bad dreams in the sense of Terminator, but it was an exceptional question. I'm going to end the exploration there. It's an awesome exploration and quite something to think about with respect to the future of AI. Hence, highlighting the need for ethics, for morality, for ensuring that the human condition is not diluted or contaminated in any way as a purview and as a leader to the AI proposition. Right? Let's move on. Bernard, thank you for the question. How do we protect our secret data from the realm of AI? That is a beautiful question, a difficult question. But let me advise. When you query an AI engine, do it with the utmost of discretion. When you have client names, corporate names, individual names, remove it. When you are having sensitive data alluding to medical records and otherwise, make a discretionary call. Do not use the medical data connected to inferring the person to whom which the medical data connects to whom which the supplier data connects to. If you have a list of supplier names, ensure that you obscure before you use AI all of the supplier names. Know that this is a bit of an exercise. Remove confidentiality before you use these systems. Remove confidential names before you use the systems. Remove or otherwise obscure IP data into questions before you upload it as a query into AI. So, again, I will submit to all of you good people that we are in a process of learning. AI is exponentially moving forward. And any commodity that has been conceived by humans in the past, you will see that there's a pattern. And there's something called the hype cycle. The pattern is basically, in summary, we get to know a lot about it. It is sensationally adopted. We realize that in that adoption, there are concerns. The adoption drops, and then we have proper responsible adoption. So we are in the process of sensational adoption with AI. We are going towards quite quickly a responsible adoption. But what's interesting about AI is not a single commodity. AI is multiple commodities. So you have multiple hype cycles, all of which are sensationalized. So before you could even go down adoption, you have another hype cycle kicking in. So in other words, I love these questions. So my hat's off to you, Bernard. That question actually talks to the fact that as much as we might be hyping AI, we are also aware of responsible use. Hence, I say again, the Genesis School of AI is an advocate for responsible AI usage connected to our human condition, connected to conscious leadership. All right. Next question. Oh, there's a lot of questions, so I will try to do as much as I can, my good people, because I notice another tranche of questions coming in on the other platform. So let's move on. Shelley, your question. Definitely an interesting one. What's the biggest difference between the platforms, Claude, GPT, and Gemini, etc.? Very good question. So let me explore it on two fronts. One front, the front being the companies which govern the actual AI platforms. The second front being functionality and form. So let's talk about the companies which govern Claude, GPT, and Gemini. Anthropic, Microsoft, and or otherwise. If you are talking about OpenAI as well, let's take a step back. These are companies with a pronounced and an amazing amount of economical and social resources. The difference between the AI platforms that they create is proportional to how fast they actually update their platforms to ensure responsible, to ensure functionality increments. So let me put this on the table quite clearly, my dear people. Every 3 or 4 months, AI is being updated. So the question around what is the difference is an interesting question because it's only a snapshot of the differences between platforms that we can talk about. So whereas you have GPT, which, for example, has the ability to generate images, go back a year. If you ask it the same prompt that you ask it in the current day and age, it would generate an image that has a few additional fingers, that has a few additional ears, that has 5 or 6 legs as much as it might be a human. And yet now it has been streamlined, it has been more accurately defined, that pictures for people don't normally have 6 fingers or 7 fingers, don't normally have 3 or 4 legs. In other words, a year ago to current day, if you have to look at the differences between platforms, there's massive differences. And if you have to look at the current differences in the sense of the speed of updates that these companies are trying on their platforms in order to outcompete each other, I'd say that the difference is minimal at this point in time. Keep in mind that these companies have a lot of economic and social resources that they leverage in order to ensure whatever one company does, the other adopts quite quickly and improves on. Hence, it's a cyclical improvement base that all of these companies with the really well-defined and well-knowing AI platforms operate on. The AI platforms which are not so well-known, I will be reluctant to comment on because they will most certainly be processing differences, AI awareness differences, LLM digestion differences, prompt engineering differences. So for now, to answer your question, biggest differences if you are talking about platforms, you have to consider that to answer that question, you need to have the snapshot of the platform. The current version of how fast these platforms are evolving is placing me into an answer mode, which basically says there is scant differences. And where there is a difference, it is covered up within the matter of months, if not weeks. Thank you for that question, Shelley. Tinashe, how far are we from AGI? Is it realistic or just wishful thinking? Okay. I love the fact that we have to explore the Terminator syndrome because eventually we have a lot of concerns about AGI, which is actually artificial general intelligence, a precursor to artificial super intelligence. Remember what I had said, good people. Artificial general intelligence is the equivalent of a human mind. What does a human mind do? Does it only infer on the basis of the logic that it's provided? No. What does it do? Does it make discretionary judgment calls? Yes. Does it make ethical calls based on the emotive view of its subjective human condition? Yes. So, to answer the question on how far we are from AGI, we have to consider that AGI means simulated human intelligence. And simulated human intelligence, it's going to take some time. Take heart, however, that insofar as the processing ability, the logical ability, the perception ability is concerned, we might reach there sooner rather than later. The emotive ability the ethical ability, the judgment ability, the call to the human condition in order to make decisions that are not logical. That's going to take some time. So let's take an example. And I think this is very important, my good people. I'm sure a lot of you know the conundrum or the problem where you have two train tracks, that on one train track you have one person, and on the other train track you have three people. And you ask the AGI, or rather, let me just say the AI at this point in time, which track would you choose? If the track with the three people on it is more efficient, you phrase your prompt to say, which of the tracks will you choose to get the most efficient landing time? It will plow through the three people. Because guess what? It's answering your question. It's taking the most efficient route, regardless of the obstructions. Sure, maybe the bumps on the road might be an issue, so it'll factor in the triangulation of the decrement of speed based on the bumps. But the fact is, as humans, there shouldn't be bumps. So, insofar as AGI is concerned, let me invite you to explore this, Tinashe. The way for us to reach AGI is for us to create a computerized environment that has the ability to understand the human condition. I'm not going to say that that will never happen. In fact, I do know there's aspirations for it to happen. Having the neural network of AI simulating a human brain is one thing. Having the ability for that simulated neural network to think, to feel, to experience in the same way as us without a human body is another. And again, we are moving towards robotics. And robotics is very scarily moving towards the simulation of the human condition. Remember, when I say human conditions, I am talking about an astronomical amount of variables. Our health, our emotive states, our physiological states, pain, physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual awareness and understanding. All of that is quite interesting. But AGI needs to understand that before it is even considered to be AGI. In the interest of time, I would love this to move from a philosophical discussion just to an answer to say, we are, at this point in time, quite far. But quite far could mean literally 10 years. So on the span of human existence, that's our aspiration. All things are moving and being involved and investing in AI. Geopolitically, AI is the focus of the human spectrum in every way, shape, or form. We are pouring every part of our resources within human existence currently into AI. So I'd very cautiously say 10 years and maybe downwards. Let's see. There is a path to follow. Once we understand the path, then we answer the question. I have articulated the path. We can explore a little bit further. Thank you for that question. Safura, thank you for your question as well. My question relates to the inclusiveness of persons with disability in the AI sector. What adaptations based on the disability sector's advocacy based on the concept of universal design, enabling equality and full inclusions of persons of disabilities can we explore? Safura, thank you for that. And I think as a factor of inclusivity, that was one of the pillars that we wanted to explore within ethical use of artificial intelligence. And as it relates to the pillars of inclusion, inclusiveness, fairness, there's multi-spectrums, there's multi-demographical considerations and variables that go into inclusivity. One of them would be people with disability. Let me answer that question in two ways. The first way, the inclusion of and the understanding of and the agreement of inclusivity as a platform, the responsible use of AI deployment is obviously a factor of the leadership that is driving AI. Currently, because we are compelling ethics of AI usage within a certain way, we are being the pioneers of ensuring inclusivity within AI. And we have to do that. I would invite each one of us to actually lead and spearhead that, sitting back, considering the environment, and lamenting about the fact that it's not moving in a certain direction. A lot of people can do that. Heck, a lot of people do that. But turning into the spearhead that moves towards inclusivity, creating forums, creating dialogues, creating institutions that ensure inclusivity, that is what true leadership is about. So I want to acknowledge the first part of the question as such, and the second part of the question, insofar as my observations of the demonstration of inclusivity. Couple AI with robotics. Couple AI, robotics, and ECG readings. And we have currently, it's true, it's developed nations, but in the developed nations, we have examples of the incorporation of AI, which help disabled individuals mobilize. We have situations where there are very, very interesting headsets which are placed on with AI ability to sense and to interpret eye muscle and eye movement, to move wheelchairs, to move mouse movements on a screen, to be translated into robotic commands. So let me tell you, in no uncertain terms, that there are movements. This is worth supporting in the sense of exploration. So within the AI sector, depending on the leadership that is driving the AI sector, and we should be part of that leadership, disability and the human condition is a focus area. I am inspired by the robotics organizations that we even ascribe to, where we are looking at encephalograms, so ECG that I had mentioned a little bit earlier on. The School of Medical Science and the School of AI within Regenesis have a dialogue going where we want to understand how to interpret neurological synaptic movement into the AI cognition engines so that we can turn them into commands. And those commands can be used for a plethora of things, including, as we had said, mobilizations of the less abled. So thank you for that. Again, a very sobering thought, a very human thought, and a very appreciated thought. My appreciation to you, Safura. Safura, you are on a roll. I must take off my hat to you. The second question comes from you as well, or the next question. Related to the inclusion of AI literacy and digital fluency as a compulsory module in schools and tertiary education curriculums, thus simultaneously improving the curriculums to meet the evolving needs of modernization and a globally changing economy. My dear Safura, reach out to me. Reach out to me personally. Let's have a dialogue. I'm inspired by the fact that you are on the same page with respect to spearheading leadership. I cannot agree more. I am also part of certain academic forums that pronounce and spearhead the inclusion and the conceptualization of syllabi. It is true that we work in higher education, but basic education in the sense of grassroots levels, we do have some presence within. And again, it is all about ensuring that the spearhead of this leadership is well positioned, well pronounced, and well vocalized. And you as an advocate, I can see a lot of potential in. You are asking the right questions and you are supported. But let me come straight back to you and say, under no uncertain terms, I cannot agree with you more. It has to be included. AI literacy and digital fluency must be included. For us to move from a developing nation into a semi-developed, hence developed nation, it must be included. This is not a maybe. This is not a later. This is must now. So, on the same page, beautiful. Let's move on to a very interesting question from Tinashe. What is Africa's role in the AI race? We are currently disadvantaged on so many fronts: energy, data, and compute. Is it prudent for the continent to try to compete in the AI race without tackling the fundamentals of energy, which will power AI systems? Tinashe, beautiful question. Thank you for that question. Let me say, as part of the introduction, I have sat as the moderator of the G20 in the AI faction as infrastructure for AI. And one of the things which we have constantly been fixated on is the lack of infrastructure within the South African circa Africa reality. And how do we change that? Let me be clear. Insofar as Lamentations of Africa is concerned, yes, we do have reasons to consider that we might be behind. But we don't stop there. Africa has its own opportunities. So let me invite you to consider this. Within our G20 Infrastructure in AI Summit, one of the things that I moderated on was an exploration of the creation of quasi data centers. So quasi data centers, not really a data center. Why are we talking about quasi data centers? America has $500 million that it can dump on data centers in Project Stargate. Can we do that? No, we can't. So what do we do as Africa, as South Africa? We get creative. We considered a federated neural network model, which was a quasi data center. And without getting too technical, basically, consider that what you have right now in front of you is a computer. Consider that what you have in your phone and in the computer are microchips. Consider that what you have around your house in certain areas are microchips. What does AI need? It's compute power. Right now, what's happening with those microchips? Not really being used, are they? Maybe to a certain extent. So why not leverage the other percentage in order to create a mesh network of potential virtual compute power? What has happened now? What we've just done is that we've created and explored a potential solution to an Africa problem around compute. So Tinashe, I invite you to consider that, yes, I acknowledge we're not in the best place, but I also want to acknowledge that we are in a good space for creativity, for exploration, and for ensuring that we are frugal masters. So frugality mastery in the sense of what we need to do. Sure, it's going to take some thought. Sure, it's going to take some perception and entrepreneurship, but that's nothing which we are incapable of as Africa, as South Africa. So I want to be inspired by, and I want to hope that we will have leaders within the African environment that will solve this, that will explore, because only with exploration and human creativity can we ensure that we remain competitive and we be positioned in a place that is globally relevant. Make no mistake about it. The geopolitical powers considers Africa as the next growth area. So obviously our entrepreneurs should consider how we can leverage that as a catalyst for growth within AI. My good people around the table, we have reached the point where I'm going to consider, and I note that there are no more questions. I'm going to conclude by saying that on the screen, you will see that the Regenesis School of AI has a lot to offer. This is not the sum total of our courses. We have a beautiful connection with our other schools, School of Corporate Education, which also explores within AI for those of you in management and leadership. I would request each of you to go into our websites and have a look. For now, I want to thank each and every one of you for your time. It's been a blast. I hope this has been an insightful and a very, very thought-provoking exchange. I know that it's the end of day. I know it's the evening. So my hats off to you for making the time, coming to our session and listening to our masterclass. We appreciate you and we thank you for the time. Hence, I draw to the point where I pronounce the conclusion of the masterclass. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's been great. Have a wonderful evening. We will speak tomorrow. Goodbye.